On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, we're going to dig into the Raptors losing to the Pacers without Tyrese Haliburton. That's really all I can say about it. We'll talk about where the Raptors left this one on the table, a potential Jakob Poeltl-related complication for the Raptors, plus the good, the bad, and the Hmmm. We'll do it all with Jamar Hinds of Raptors Republic. That's all coming up today. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1366 of Locked On Raptors for Thursday, March the 23rd. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 9 seasons on various platforms. You can find all of my work over on Twitter at Woodley Sean, and you can go and follow the brand new Locked On Raptors Instagram account as we try to migrate a lot of stuff over from Elon Musk's hell pit to a different hell pit of someone else's creation. Go follow Locked On Raptors on Instagram, little clips and stuff of the show that you'll catch in your little timeline there. It's much appreciated. I happened to lock myself out of the account for a week because I was doing too much suspicious activity, which was just following accounts. But anyway, I'll be back up and running and posting stuff in a week's time unless they take the handcuffs off before then. Either way, Locked On Raptors on Instagram. Please go do that. You can also subscribe to the show for free on your favorite podcast apps or on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Please go ahead and do that. It costs no money to support the show, and you earn a friend for life in this guy right here. All right, let's get to it. Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Basketball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise? Well, this game is for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebasketballgm.com and look it up on the app stores as well. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game. All right, let's get to it. Raptors losing to the... I can't even say it. You lose to the Indiana Pacers without Tyrese Haliburton. Yes, I know. No Gary Trent Jr., no Scottie Barnes, no Precious Achiuwa. All of their losses, I think, felt in varying degrees in this one. We'll get to Precious, actually, and why I thought he would have been a very nice piece to have on hand for this game when you consider some of the struggles Jakob Poeltl had on one end of this game. There's a lot to dig into here. Jamar Hinds of Raptors Republic is here. Big takeaways first. Jamar, this felt like a game where every opportunity was given to the Raptors to take it late in the late going, and yet they just refused to put this one away. And then, of course, Andrew Nembhard, in front of his family and friends, puts him to bed. What were your overall impressions of this game in which the Raptors just simply could not take care of themselves and do the very minor things that seemed to need to be done to pull this one out?
Well, they started, and this has been a trend, they've started brutal defensively. Indiana shot 75% in the first quarter. You mentioned Nembhard. He just had open lane after open lane. Guys were a step slow. You just drive to the rim. He did a beautiful job of setting up Miles Turner. Some rolling to the basket. That was to begin the game and to end the game. Obviously, he had that beautiful step back dagger three. That was crazy. And the Raptors was one of those games where they just couldn't buy a shot from deep. Will Barton specifically, but then they, subbed him out and actually went with your boy Malachi Flynn down the stretch.
My boy, credit to him, man. He looked good.
He did. He made some. He made some big threes. Gave the Raptors the lead, and then everything kind of fell apart after that. They couldn't buy a basket. They couldn't buy a free throw. You got swept by the Indiana Pacers. Well, I mean, what else is there to say? This is the first time. This is the first regular season game that Indiana has won in Toronto in 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's been that long. Yeah. So it's not a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the three-point shooting, just a lot of low-hanging fruit in this game that was not taken. Wide open threes in the corner for OG Anunoby twice in the fourth quarter. Yeah. That's his shot. They were talking about it on the broadcast, just bigging him up. One of the best quarter shooters in the league.
He's been on fire lately. He's been on fire lately, but just not this game.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get too upset, I suppose, about OG having a bit of a return to the mean, but certainly one or two of those threes drops, they win this game. One or two of Jakob Poeltl's free throws down the stretch goes in. They have a better shot of winning this game. Yeah. Fred VanVleet, I thought, made some just kind of uncharacteristic, boneheaded turnovers and decisions, which I don't usually associate with Fred VanVleet. He's normally very smart. He has the nickname Steady Freddy for a reason. 5 turnovers in this one, some kind of unforced errors. There was one like at a point in the game where it was screaming for just someone to settle things down. I think this was in the first half. It was kind of this like back and forth pong match as opposed to a basketball game. And Fred, instead of, he gets the ball kind of in a scramble, instead of just kind of slowing things down, he tries to throw like a touchdown pass to Chris Boucher.
To Boucher,
yeah, directly into the arms of a defender.
Yeah. He also had a couple of drives where he got stripped and he wanted to foul. So he kept yelling, I got hit on the hand. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they got 39 free throws in this game. I don't think you can really complain about the whistle. Fred went to the line 12 times.
No, exactly.
You can't miss 10 free throws. You can't go 7 of 34 in a game against a team like the Pacers that thrives, and really their whole lifeblood is, can our guards get these threes up? And they did in this game. And yeah, I thought the defense was particularly concerning. I want to save the Jakob Poeltl stuff for the second segment, I think, because I think there's kind of a bigger, interesting question to be talking about there. But I guess back to the guys not in the lineup: Barnes, Gary, Achiuwa.
Okay.
I mean, where did you feel the absence of those guys the most? Obviously, you should still beat the Pacers without Tyrese Haliburton, but it is a little bit more explainable considering their 4th best player in this game was probably Malachi Flynn. The depth has been an issue all season long. I don't think it changes anything we've learned about this team since Yak arrived, that they lost this game without those 3 guys. But of those 3, who did you feel they could have used the most?
I would probably lean to Gary just because he's the best shooter of the 3 and they shot so bad from 3, which brings me to a question of what did you think of Will Barton in this game? Because, I mean, he got all the looks you could ask for, and now he's shooting 19% from 3 as a Raptor. Is this like the Raptor curse? Are we like the anti-shooting coach or something? Because this is a guy who's been in the upper 30s for pretty much most of his career, most of his Denver career. Even in Washington before he got cut, he was shooting 37% from 3. But yeah, he's getting a lot of looks. I started looking at his I thought maybe his shot kind of changed a little bit because I thought he was like veering right, but then I looked at some of his Washington shots and he was doing the same thing, so that's not an issue. So
you're a true hero going back and looking at Washington Wizards Will Barton tape, man.
I mean, just a couple, just a couple games. Well,
got your takes on Corey Kispert you want to sprinkle in from your watching of the Wizards?
I was just watching him yesterday, and I'm used to him because I'm also a Nuggets fan, so I've seen Will Barton for years. I'm just like, I'm not used to him shooting this bad. So, he has, sometimes he goes straight up, sometimes he doesn't. But yeah, I was trying to find a reason as to why he's missing so many wide open threes. I mean, Nick Nurse brought it up after the game. And he didn't single him out or anything, but he was just basically saying that, they're generating good looks and he just has to get on his feet under him and knock them down. And I mean, that was his opportunity to, I mean, he already kind of has a role. I know people have wanted to see Jeff Doughton. He only played 6 minutes yesterday. He could have played more minutes, but that was kind of Barton's role to kind of like staple himself, if you will, to the rotation. Cause I mean, Nurse can take him out at any moment, especially if he's having games like this. But yeah, you needed one of those to fall and none of them fell. And then eventually Nurse had to go to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, that was a shot, right, to sort of carve out, I think, a more regular role for the last 9 games. And I do think he probably cost himself some minutes with what happened here. I think for me, it just, as far as like what we're seeing, he wasn't very good with Washington this season, right? Like, yes, the 3-point percentage was 38%. He had 7.1 attempts a game in a pretty limited run. He was getting them up. He's getting them up just as regularly, if not more regularly now, which is good. It's good to have the happy trigger finger, but maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. Like he was, by all accounts, by all the advanced metrics, one of the worst rotation players in all of basketball with the Wizards. There's a reason he became available as a buyout guy in the late part of the season. If he was better, he'd still be there.
I think a lot of that was defensively too, because a couple years ago he was, labeled as a pretty good defender, like above average defender, but that's really fallen off over the last couple of years. And then now the Raptors apparently have a guy who can't shoot or defend. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I probably just would have started Chris Boucher in his place. I know you want to have some potency off the bench, but also, like, you're up against the Pacers. Just play your 5 best available players and see if you can run them off the floor early, as opposed to what happened. And it wasn't all Will Barton's fault necessarily, although 1 or 2 of those threes go in. And again, like, the margins in this game were so slim, it was right there. The Raptors have no one to blame but themselves for losing this game, because it was just in their palms a million. I tweeted this last night. You can't be mad if you walk by the last cookie on the counter 10 times, not taking it, and then your wife takes it. You can't be mad about that you have to now eat like a moldy pear. You should have taken the cookie when you had the damn chance. They did not do that. I want to talk on the other side about Jakob Poeltl, and why I thought this was maybe the first game that illuminated some of the potential concerns with building a team around a Jakob Poeltl starting center situation. I'm not ultimately worried, but I do think there's some stuff they're going to have to game plan around, and we'll get into that in just 1 second. Before we do that, however, got to tell you about our friends over at Ultimate Basketball GM. You're going to love this game. If you're someone like me who loves to just be a GM in a sports game as just like a fun pastime, if you're the type of person who plays a sports game and sims through the game so you can get to the off season, Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is for you. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. And you're responsible for it all: hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading and training players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. And it's in a challenging and realistic game world as well. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM completely is free and playable offline, play on the go as you want and when you want to. And you can join little leagues. We have a league right now with the Locked On hosts who are having a great time with it. Although Pat, the designer from Locked On Bulls, who's been on this show before, keeps on just destroying all of us. It's a really hard time. He's got a bit of a dynasty going in our Locked On league. So congrats to Pat on that. If you want to be the Pat, the designer of your friend group playing Ultimate Pro Basketball GM, you can go do it right now. Locked On Raptors listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in the game store. So go check it out. Download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code on the screen, or look up in the app stores and find it. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, we continue on here with your first listen of the day, digging into the Raptors' loss to the Pacers with Jamar Hinds of Raptors Republic, the recap king, they call him, over there at RR. That's what I call you. We'll get people to we'll get like a crown made for you if you want, like the Burger King, but like better. I think there's something here. Jakob Poeltl, I want to talk about him because, on the surface, pretty good game for him overall. 23 points. 8 boards. He goes 10 of 12 from the field and was the lifeblood of their offense for long stretches of this game. Just 3 players in double figures for the Raptors, all 3 of them over 20. Yak was one of them, and obviously they're a better team when he's on the floor. There's no question about this, just in the grand scheme of things. However, this game, I did think you kind of saw a bit of the dark underbelly and some of the realities that come in with Jakob Poeltl, who's not a perfect player, right? And no one's a perfect player outside of like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid and Giannis. Like, everyone's got their issues you got to scheme around it, and Jakob Poeltl's no different. And I thought this game really illuminated some of the stuff that they're going to have to figure out when it comes to Yak. And I think it brought into focus the importance of a couple of guys as well, kind of developing along a track that can help you augment what Jakob Poeltl does. Miles Turner is an interesting matchup for him, Jamar. We've seen this against shooting bigs since Yak arrived, where they've had to kind of get creative. Against the Wizards, for example, they closed small with Kristaps Porzingis out there as opposed to having Yak hang out with him in the corner. Against the Nuggets, they had Yak guard Aaron Gordon in the corner and not guard Nikola Jokic, so he wasn't getting pulled out. And there's a reason for that. When Jakob Poeltl gets pulled up to the level of the screen, it's kind of like pulling on a loose shoelace. It all kind of comes undone for the Raptors defense. There's no backline rim protection whatsoever. It all just kind of seems to come unspooled. And that's not Yak's fault necessarily. That's like the game plan. That's the scheme they're running. But I thought in this game, specifically in the first half, they were bringing him up to the level of the screen a ton because Miles Turner obviously is a great pick and pop threat. You have to be mindful of that. and it just left them so barren on the back end, especially with no Scottie Barnes, who's been, of course, a really good help side rim protector at times this season, and no Precious Achiuwa obviously available to slide in those sort of help roles either off the bench, and they just got murdered by a run of dudes just kind of walking into layups. And they changed this up a little bit in the second half. They switched a little bit more often. They had, a couple times they would sort of allow Yak to drop back and kind of have Boucher rotate over from the wing to deal with the pick and pop threat from Miles Turner to try to contain him there, while also having Yak back in the position where he's best succeeding. And Yak had a pretty good game all told, just like defending at the rim, had 2 blocks. I thought was a great imposing presence when he was there. But when you pull him out, it gets tricky. And we also saw a couple times switched on to Ben Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard. He just didn't really have it to hang with those dudes. I pulled from the advanced matchup stats here, Jamar. Andrew Nembhard in 10 or 11 partial possessions guarded by Jakob Poeltl over just like a minute and a half. The Pacers scored 21 points on those possessions. 4 points, 3 assists for Nembhard, and 2 of 3 on field goals as well. It just... I think you saw there's the limitation there with Jakob Poeltl when it comes to when another team is going to try to pull him out, they have to scheme around that. And no Precious Achiuwa to come in and kind of be more of a switchable defender. Christian Koloko not quite ready for that stuff. Those 2 guys I think will be their counters to that down the line. But thoughts on what we saw from Yak defensively in this game? And it's not even, again, so much about Yak. It's about his importance to the team close to the rim and how it kind of gets a little bit hairy when he's pulled a little bit further away.
This is an interesting take because I have to admit I didn't really notice that, but now that you've explained it in detail, I get it. And that was probably a big reason why Nembhard had so many easy lanes early in the game where Jakob was high and he would just drive by whoever was guarding him. A couple times it was Siakam, but yeah, with no Scottie there who could help on the weak side, that's actually a really good observation. I gotta pay attention to that in future games. But yeah, overall, Yak did have a pretty good game. He was one of the rare Raptors that could actually finish at the rim because I think the Raptors were 13 for 26 at the rim in the first half, which is horrible. They had a bunch of transition opportunities that went absolutely nowhere. But yeah, that's actually a really good observation. Like I said, I never really took in because the Wizards game you mentioned where Porzingis brought him out. I actually missed that game, so I didn't get to see that. So that's interesting because when you look at Turner's baskets, like most of them were just rolling to the rim and Nembhard would find them. But you're not talking about those. You're talking about just, them strategically bringing Yak out so that they can get to the basket easier. And, the Raptors tried to close that up by switching, as you said, early in the second half. But yeah, that's something I need to pay attention to.
It was an issue, I think, that, again, Turner had a nice game, 6 of 9. I don't even think it was necessarily Turner who did the most damage because of this little wrinkle. I think it was mostly Nembhard and Mathurin who kind of were the benefactors here. And I think TJ McConnell as well. God, TJ McConnell's so freaking annoying. It's unbelievable, man. But yeah, I think it's just something to know. And ultimately, I think Jakob Poeltl should be on the Raptors long term. He rocks. I'm having a great time watching Yak. But I do think sort of the big takeaway here is he probably can't be your 3rd best player, which he doesn't have to be most of the time. But last night, the circumstances dictated it as such. You also get him going 3 of 9 from the line, and that is just a big bummer. It's part of the deal, but they're going to have to, I think, have contingency plans in place if teams are hacking him down in late in the stretch of games or a center is pulling him out. They're going to have backup plans. And again, I think that kind of brings into focus the importance of Precious Achiuwa kind of getting back on track whenever he's back this season or next, because we know he can be a switchable across every position guy and make you a little bit less prone to your big man kind of getting pulled away from the rim and all of that. And Christian Koloko, I think we've seen, he's got some great mobility as well. And he can probably, I think, track from far away from the rim back to the rim quicker than Yak can, just because he's got those crazy long strides and his arms go for days. And so we can kind of cover a little bit more ground. We've seen him, send a double at half court and get all the way back to the rim for a block a couple times this season. Like, that dude's pretty mobile. And so, like, they'll have things they can use to counter these sort of weaknesses in Yak's game. It's just harder when you don't have your available guys to implement all of those strategic changes and you're just kind of rolling with what you got. So, part of it's the situation, part of it's the limitations of Yak. I don't think it's ultimately that big a deal. I do want to ask you, though, we talked about Miles Turner a lot going into the trade deadline, the previous 14 trade deadlines. That's just what you do with Miles Turner. If you were to give Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster truth serum and just ask, would you rather have Jakob Poeltl or Miles Turner on your team? Who do you think they would say given truth serum?
I think they would take Turner.
Yeah. I think it's close.
Okay.
I ultimately think they're pretty similar players impact-wise. They get there differently, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a question of, do you prefer Yak's passing versus Turner's shooting? And maybe the shooting is the answer, but I do think Yak's passing as like a vehicle to get this offense humming has been really valuable, and I don't think you'd be getting that from Miles Turner. So I think it's probably close to a wash, but it's interesting. It's we'll never know the answer unless we can get some truth serum into the coffee of Masai and Bobby. I don't know if I have that planned out just yet, but it's interesting. And ultimately, Yak's awesome. They're just gonna, I think, have to account for the fact that in some matchups, it's not gonna be it for him, and that's okay. We're gonna come back on the other side, get into the good, the bad, and the to round out the episode. Before we do that, however, got to tell you, better friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NCAA men's and women's tournaments are heating up. Now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. You just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. That's super fun. You get a couple of players maybe you have your eye on in a tournament game, maybe some NBA prospects that you want to go and lay some props down on. You can do that in that same-game parlay. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, continue on here with your first listen of the day, rounding it out with the good, the bad, and the way we round out every single Raptors recap episode here on Locked On Raptors. A thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a little bit interested going forward from the game. We'll start with the good. Jamar, what you got?
Oh, this one's easy for me. This is the first time that 3 Canadians have started on an NBA team. So I'm not going to the Raptors for a good. I'm going to the Pacers for a good. And all of them, O'Shea, Mathurin, and obviously Nembhard, all of them had a good game. Mathurin and Brissett both had some spectacular plays. You saw Mathurin's chase down on OG in the first half. That was a vicious block. And then, gets dunked on every now and then, and he caught it again off the inbound.
It's because he tries. He's like Utah.
who got a poster of his own by Donovan Mitchell just a couple days ago.
There should be a reverse dunk contest where all the guys who get dunked on the most because they try to block dunks the most just have to get dunked on for sport. I think that would be maybe the way to save the dunk contest.
But O'Shea's dunk on Yak was pretty nice.
What a stupid tech, by the way.
I was just about to bring that up because you tweeted about it. But, it's like, what? He stared. He looked at him. I don't even know if he looked at him. He kind of looked. He looked
in the general direction in a somewhat menacing way. And
whatever, man.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Whatever. So, and then obviously Nembhard was just a killer all game long. So, it was really cool to see that, homecoming for not Mathurin, but the other two. And it's just, every year. And Fred and Boucher talked about it a little bit. Fred a little bit salty. He was like, we shouldn't be as welcoming to Canadians because,
Should be
obviously,
a lot meaner. Yeah.
yeah, just joking, obviously, but
Ice
it's
their
just,
families out of tickets, that type of stuff.
but it's just cool to see every year you're seeing Canadians come up. And remember, Nemhard was a second round pick, probably
Yeah.
because he was a 4-year guy. You know how 4-year guys get treated in the draft. So, he's been one of the steals of the draft, if not the steal of the draft. So it was cool to see them up close. I mean, basically, Indiana is like Canada's team, I guess, because they have so many Canadians on the team. So yeah,
I think it's probably got to be OKC more just because Shea is amazing and Dort's also there.
that's true.
Even
Canada
though
East.
I don't love rooting for OKC because of Sam Presti being a pick hoarding weirdo. I mean, the Nuggets have Jamal Murray. That's also very cool. You should maybe root for him. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. On the topic of 4-year college point guards who end up being pretty good players, boy, oh boy, I don't know what the draft situation is going to be for the Raptors. I have yet to dive into draft tape or anything like that. But if they could find themselves a 4-year veteran point guard to come in and be their backup point guard, I would be all right with that. That said, one of my goods, I got 2 goods, is Malachi Flynn, a multi-year point guard in college who has not quite panned out, but a nice game from him last night. I think it's worth shouting out. Really good defense, I thought, on McConnell and Nemhard in spots. They brought him into close because of that defense and the three-point shooting. He was 2 of 4 from deep. Always shot ready, Malachi Flynn. You can say a lot of things about him, but he is always ready to get his looks up. I thought it was a nice showing from him. Will we see him again if they're fully healthy? Probably not, but maybe that Will Barton spot in the rotation is up for grabs because Will Barton ain't grabbing it necessarily. My other good was Pascal. I thought, tough to lose a game in which he kind of does what he did, 14 fourth quarter points, I think it was. And just I thought a very gritty effort from him for a guy who was not moving very well, it seems. He kind of seems like he's dragging ass a little bit. His handle seems a little bit wobbly and loose. He even had a spin move that kind of malfunctioned and he couldn't quite turn the corner around a guy. But still found his way to 31, 10, and 7 on 11 of 17 shooting because Pascal Siakam is very good. Once they realized in the second half, no one on this Pacers team can guard him one-on-one, it was kind of over, and wanted to shout him out there because it's been a bit of a hard go of late for Pascal, but I thought he was awesome in this game, and it's a shame they lost that effort from him. Let's go to the bad, shall we? What you got for your bad?
Okay, so I have a couple of pointers.
Okay.
I already mentioned the finishing was not great. I hate watching the Raptors in transition because it's like they don't know how to make that pass to get an easier basket. It's just, I think it was actually, for example, the play that OG got swatted on by Mathurin. Pascal was a little bit ahead of him, but it's like I could see OG was thinking about getting it to Pascal, but he didn't know how. So he just took it himself, and then he got swatted. And then you've seen this with Precious. You've seen this with Boucher, where it's just like the pass is there, but they don't make it. And so just finishing at the rim in general, even in half court was terrible. But the transition ones where you think, okay, you have a 2-on-1, you should get a basket here. It just doesn't happen. The other issue I had was obviously Pascal had a great game, and this isn't really on Pascal. It was more strategic scheme. I don't know, but there were a few possessions in the first half, and Alvin Williams actually pointed this out as well, where Siakam was on the perimeter and he was being guarded by a McConnell, a Nemhard, and this was at a point where the Raptors were kind of struggling offensively, and it's just that's a mismatch you need to take advantage of. And the Raptors are normally a mismatch hunting type of team, but I felt like they did a poor job of this in the first half, where it's just Siakam only had 6 points in the first half. I think he took 6 shots, and I just felt like there were more opportunities to get the ball in a better place so that he could score. Obviously, he had a great second half, 25 second half points. I think you mentioned he had 14 in the fourth, but I just felt like there were a few wasted possessions in the first half where he was being guarded by a point guard, and the Raptors didn't identify that.
Yeah, for sure. That was troublesome to say the least, and I'm glad they figured it out eventually, but maybe they win this game. Again, the margins, 2 extra possessions where Pascal realizes, oh, I can eat this dude for lunch, and the team gets out of his way. They probably win this game. Very frustrating stuff. Let's get to the my bad, I suppose. We've talked about it. Will Barton's my bad. He's not good right now. He's very bad, and it would be cool if he was better. Let's go to the what you got for your
I'm going to let you go first because
okay.
I kind of lost it.
That's all right. I'm just going to use this as my chance to check it on the play-in situation. And the question I'm asking here is, does anybody actually want this? Does anybody want the 8th seed? As the Hawks lost last night on a back-to-back to the Wolves by 1 point. So, hey, good effort there, Hawks. You've got the Bulls. DeMar DeRozan got hurt last night, which is hopefully DeMar's okay. Obviously, he's incredible. And the idea of a Raptors-Bulls play-in game, as much as it sounds like torment, also sounds kind of fun and cool, even if it will clearly end on DeMar pump-faking Scottie Barnes into oblivion for clutch time free throws to end it or something like that. Anyway, it's status quo. They lose this game. They lose no ground on the 8th seed with the Hawks, the Bulls losing. The Pacers are 2 games back. Yes, they have the tiebreaker, but I don't know if the Pacers really got the juice here to pull this one to the end. The Wizards are completely flailing. It seems like it's down to the Hawks, Bulls, and Wizards for that 8th seed, and it does feel like the Heat are going to pass the Nets as well. That 8th seed's super valuable, man. I don't know what to say. You might get an easier opponent because the Bulls are playing very well right now. The Hawks have, high star power. The Nets don't have those things. They're just fine. And you also only have to win 1 game if you get that 7-8 against the Nets. That is very, very important. I hope they can pull their crap together and get themselves to the 8th seed here, man. What was your
First, just playing off what you said.
Yeah.
I believe when you come to the play-in picture, I believe Miami's going to catch Brooklyn, which is what you want if you're any of these teams.
Miami in a one-off?
Yeah.
God, no.
Yeah, you don't want to see Bam and Jimmy Butler be doing Jimmy Butler playoff type. No, you don't want that.
I just don't want to see zone defense for 90%.
That too. Yeah, that would be a problem for the Raptors. But yeah,
like an art basketball game from the Heat being like, what if we only played zone in this one-off elimination game? What if we really went full Syracuse?
Yeah. I'm admittedly a little bit surprised that Brooklyn's kept it together a little bit. I thought they were going to start free falling when they made the KD and Kyrie trades, but they're still hanging on to a playoff spot. But I think they're eventually going to lose that. And then that's going to be the team that probably goes from 7th seed to not in the playoffs altogether. So that would be the spot. So, perfect world, Raptors catch Atlanta. They're 8th. They play Brooklyn for 7th. They beat Brooklyn. They're the 7th seed. That's a perfect world. But the Raptors keep losing these opportunities to catch Atlanta. By the way, Atlanta's on a stretch where I feel like, what is their record right now? They're 1 game under 500.
They are 36-37, 1 game ahead of the Raptors.
They have this crazy stretch where I feel like it's been over 20 games in a row where they're either been 500 or 1 game under 500. Like they win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. I think it's actually a record how long they've been doing this. It's crazy. But
in a team full of teams that are in a league full of teams that are mid, they might be the middest of all the teams.
Middest. That's a new word. But and yeah, you brought up the Bulls. If you're a DeMar DeRozan fan, and he is my favorite Raptor, I feel like that's like the nightmare scenario for a Raptors / DeMar fan, where it's like, okay. It's like, I don't want to see that. Maybe it's like a win-win though. If you're the kind of person who wants better lottery odds, maybe you get that 9-10 game. If you love DeMar and DeMar sinks you in that game, you get into the lottery. Maybe you get a shot to move up, and also you got to see DeMar do a cool thing on your ass. Maybe I think DeMar would love to do that. Going back to
it's happening.
Trade.
If they play them in that 9-10 and he's healthy. Boy, oh boy.
But you know what's going to happen, right? The Raptors are just going to trap the absolute hell out of him, and Levine's going to go off for like 40 points.
I love how predictable the Raptors' downfall is. It's the best.
That's what they always do with DeMar. They just trap the hell out of him and let somebody else go off. But to my okay. The Raptors, and I've brought this up before in a previous show about how I was concerned about their fourth quarter offense. And since February 10th, they have the third worst point differential in the fourth quarter. It's actually insane. It's like first quarter to here, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. It's like you could obviously point at the bench for that. But this game, they actually were a +1 in the fourth, but it's so misleading because they had so many opportunities, as we've mentioned, to win this game. And then Boucher made a 3 at the buzzer. So it went from -2 to +1. So
love that stat padding. I'm not sure if it ruined any spreads. I probably not, because the Raptors would have been favored anyway. But I hope someone's gambling got messed up or benefited greatly from that Boucher 3, because that was, ultimate stat pattern, net rating saver, all that good stuff.
But yeah, I just continue to monitor this. The three, they have a tendency to miss the open 3, the momentum 3, and late in the fourth they eat that shot. They tend to miss that. Pascal hasn't been great in the. Again, this is not really from this game. I'm just talking in general.
Sure.
Like down the stretch, he hasn't been great offensively finishing games. So it's just something I just continue to monitor the fourth quarter offense. And this game, the killer was all the damn free throws they miss. So it feels like it's always something down the stretch of fourth quarters where either they're up by double digits and all of a sudden it becomes a 1-point game, or they're in the mix and they find a way to lose. It's happened about at least 10 times this season. So it's just something I continue to monitor.
The basketball team that will drive us all to insanity, your 2023 Toronto Raptors. Jamar, you're not going to drive anyone to insanity because you're the best, dude. Thanks for hopping on the show. Anything you can promote for the good people out there, please do right now.
I have my recap on this game on Raptors Republic right now. My Twitter handle, JamarBH. There's a link to all my Raptors Republic work there. A little bit quiet stretch for me because I've been doing a lot of March Madness stuff for TSN, but I am going to be doing a preview and a recap of a couple of Raptors games next week. So look out for that.
Hell yeah. Everyone go support Jamar. Jamar's best. You can find me on Twitter at Woodley Sean. Find the show on Instagram, Locked On Raptors. Go give it a follow. Please, please, please. You can subscribe to the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel and all the podcast app feeds as well, whatever you prefer. Leave a rating, leave a review on the apps that allow you to do that. It always helps. Boosts the algorithm, makes me feel better about myself, etc., etc. We'll be back again tomorrow. TBD on the subject. We might do a mailbag, actually, because it's going to be just me. Yeah, get your mailbag questions in. I'll put a little prompt in the email, in the comments here, so you can leave your mailbag questions underneath. Send them in on Twitter. Send them in on Instagram, baby. And we will leave it there. Go make your second listen of the day, Locked On Leafs, as the Buds continue their push towards the playoffs. They're going to host that first-round series against Tampa. So much dread, and Mike and Dave over at Locked On Leafs will help you sort through the dread associated with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Also, Locked On Blue Jays starting up very soon as well with new host Craig Ballard, so keep an eye out there, as Locked On Jays will be up and running in time for the new baseball season, which starts like a week from today, which is very, very exciting. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you Friday. Bye-bye.